The blood on Beatrice Donovan's hands told a story her mother would never forgive, even though it was the blood of childbirth and not violence that stained her fingers that cold January morning in 1878. She had delivered Martha Henderson's baby in the back room of the general store while the respectable women of Santa Fe, New Mexico whispered behind their gloved hands about the girl who had learned medicine from a Navajo healer, instead of studying needlework like a proper young lady. The infant's first cry had filled Beatrice with a fierce pride that lasted exactly as long as it took for her to return home and find her mother waiting in the parlor, face white with fury, hands trembling as they gripped a letter from Boston. "You have destroyed us," Eleanor Donovan said, her voice shaking. The letter fluttered to the floor between them. "Your aunt writes that she will not sponsor your sister's debut, not while you persist in this shameful behavior. Running through the streets at all hours, touching strangers, acting like some common midwife instead of the lady I raised you to be." Beatrice was 22 years old, tall and dark-haired with her father's steady gray eyes and her mother's delicate features. She had been born in Santa Fe when it was still rough and new, when her father had come west to make his fortune in cattle. He had died 2 years ago, leaving them comfortable but not wealthy, respectable but not prominent. Everything depended on maintaining their position, on Beatrice making a good match, on her younger sister Catherine being able to marry into one of the old Boston families through their aunt's connections. "Martha Henderson would have died," Beatrice said quietly, "and the baby was breech. Dr. Morrison was drunk, and there was no one else." "Then she should have died," her mother snapped, and then caught herself, pressing a hand to her mouth. "I do not mean that, but Beatrice, you cannot keep doing this. You bring shame upon this family. You make us a laughingstock. No decent man will ever marry you if you continue this way." "Perhaps I do not want to marry a man who would value my ignorance over my ability to save lives." Her mother's eyes filled with tears. "You are selfish. You think only of yourself and your pride." "What about Catherine? What about her future? Your behavior affects us all." The words hit harder than a slap. Beatrice looked at her mother's anguished face and felt something crack inside her chest. She loved her sister. She loved her mother, even when they could not understand each other. But she also loved the work she did. The knowledge she had gained from old Maria, who had taught her which herbs stopped bleeding and how to turn a baby in the womb, and when to be gentle and when to be firm. "I will think on it," Beatrice said finally, and escaped to her room before her mother could see her cry. She did not sleep that night. Instead, she sat by her window and watched the stars wheel overhead and wondered if there was any way to be both the daughter her mother wanted and the woman she had become. By dawn, she had no answer, only a bone-deep exhaustion and the knowledge that she could not stop. Not when women in this town needed her. Not when she was good at something that mattered. 3 days later, she was in the market buying vegetables when she heard the commotion. A horse had bolted, dragging its rider through the dusty street. People scattered, screaming, and Beatrice dropped her basket and ran toward the chaos without thinking. The horse was massive, a gray stallion with wild eyes and foam on its bit. The rider, a man in worn denim and a dusty black hat, had one foot caught in the stirrup and was being dragged alongside, his body bouncing horribly against the hard-packed earth. Beatrice could see blood on his face, see the way his arms moved trying to protect his head. She did not think, she simply moved, running parallel to the horse, her skirts hiked up in a way that would have mortified her mother. The stallion was panicked, not mean, and she could see that clearly. Something had frightened it, and now it was running blind. "Easy," she called out, her voice cutting through the screams. "Easy now, easy." She put on a burst of speed and managed to grab the trailing reins. The horse jerked her forward, and pain shot through her shoulders, but she held on, digging her heels into the dirt and using her weight as an anchor. "Whoa," she said, gentler now, the way Maria had taught her to speak to frightened animals. "Whoa now, you are safe. Nothing is going to hurt you." The horse's ears swiveled toward her voice. It slowed just a fraction, and she kept talking, kept pulling gently on the reins. Behind her she could hear men shouting, running to help, but she ignored them. The horse needed calm, not more chaos. Finally, blessedly, the stallion stopped. It stood trembling, sides heaving, but it stopped. Beatrice kept one hand on the reins and moved to the man still caught in the stirrup. He was conscious barely, his green eyes unfocused and blood streaming from a cut on his forehead. "Hold still," she told him. "Let me get your foot free." His boot was wedged tight in the stirrup. The leather twisted. She worked quickly, her fingers steady despite her racing heart, and finally managed to slide his foot free. He collapsed onto the ground with a groan, and she knelt beside him, already assessing his injuries. "Can you hear me?" she asked. "Can you tell me your name?" "Miles," he managed. "Miles Murphy." His voice was rough, edged with pain. "You stopped my horse." "She stopped herself," Beatrice said. "I just gave her a reason to. Can you move your arms, your legs?" He tried, winced, but managed to shift all his limbs. "Think so. Feel like I went 10 rounds with a mountain." "You need to see a doctor. You have a head wound, and you may have broken ribs." "No, doctor," he said, trying to sit up. "Just need to catch my breath." "Do not be foolish," Beatrice said sharply. "You could have internal injuries." He looked at her then, really looked at her, and something in his face changed. His eyes were the color of new grass, she thought absurdly, and despite the blood and the dirt, there was something steady in his gaze, something that made her breath catch. "Then I guess it is lucky I have you," he said. "You seem to know what you're doing." Before she could respond, the crowd closed in. Men helped Miles to his feet while women clucked and fussed. Someone caught his horse, and someone else retrieved Beatrice's scattered vegetables. Through it all, she was aware of eyes on her, of whispers starting. There she goes again, acting like a man, running through the streets with her skirts up. What must her poor mother think? Beatrice lifted her chin and ignored them. Miles Murphy was watching her too, but differently, like he was trying to figure out a puzzle, like she interested him. "Thank you," he said as they helped him toward a bench. "I mean it, you saved my life." "You should still see Dr. Morrison," she said. "Is he the drunk one?" Miles asked, and she flushed. "Sometimes," she admitted, "but he knows his trade when he's sober." "I would rather trust you." He swayed slightly, and she moved to steady him without thinking. His arm was solid under her hand, warm through his shirt. "Where did you learn to handle horses like that?" "A friend taught me," she said. "You really need to sit down. You have lost blood." "Only if you sit with me and make sure I do not fall over." It was forward, too forward, but there was no guile in his face. Just honest interest and a hint of humor despite his pain. Beatrice found herself nodding, letting someone else help him to the bench while she followed, acutely aware that half the town was watching. Her mother was going to be furious. Miles Murphy turned out to be a ranch hand from the Dancing M Ranch, 20 miles outside Santa Fe. He'd come to town to deliver a message for his boss and pick up supplies when something had spooked his horse. He was 26 years old, he told Beatrice as she cleaned the cut on his forehead with water from the public pump, and he had been working ranches since he was 15. "Came west from Missouri," he said, wincing as she dabbed at the wound. "My pa died in the war, and my ma passed not long after. Did not have much reason to stay." "I am sorry," Beatrice said quietly. "It was a long time ago." He studied her face. "What about you? You born here?" "Yes. My father came west before I was born. He raised cattle for a while, then moved into freight. He died 2 years ago." "I am sorry," Miles echoed, and she could hear that he meant it. She should have left then. The wound was clean, and she had done all she could do in the middle of the street. But there was something about Miles Murphy that kept her there, sitting on that bench in the dust and the sun, talking like they had known each other for years instead of minutes. He asked about her medical training, and she found herself telling him about Maria, about learning to read the signs in a person's face that told you if their spirit was fighting or giving up, about the satisfaction of bringing a baby into the world healthy and squalling. That is real skill, Miles said. Real important work. You should be proud. My mother thinks I should be ashamed, Beatrice said, then immediately wished she could take the words back. She did not talk about this, not with strangers. But Miles did not look shocked or disapproving. He just nodded slowly. Some folks think women should stay small, he said, stay quiet and safe. But that is not living, is it? That is just existing. Something in Beatrice's chest loosened. She looked at this cowboy with his battered face and his steady eyes, and she felt seen in a way she had not felt in a very long time. I should go, she said reluctantly. You should rest, and I have already caused enough of a scene for one day. Wait. Miles reached out, then seemed to think better of it and let his hand drop. Can I see you again? To thank you proper, I mean? Maybe I could buy you dinner? That would not be appropriate, Beatrice said automatically. Why not? You saved my life. Least I can do is feed you. Because I am an unmarried woman, and you are an unmarried man, and people will talk. Let them talk, Miles said. Seems to me they talk anyway. He was right, they did talk anyway. And Beatrice was tired, so tired of living her life according to what other people thought. She met his eyes and saw hope there, and interest, and something that made her feel brave. All right, she said, at dinner, but it's somewhere public and proper. Miles's smile was like sunrise, bright and warm and impossible to look away from. Tomorrow night, there is that hotel restaurant, the nice one. I will clean up first, I promise. Tomorrow night, Beatrice agreed, and tried not to think about what her mother would say. Her mother said plenty. By the time Beatrice got home, the story had already reached their house, grown and distorted in the telling. Eleanor was waiting in the parlor again, and this time her face was not just angry but devastated. Running through the streets like a common harlot, she said, her voice breaking. Grabbing horses, throwing yourself at strange men. Beatrice, how could you? How could you humiliate me this way? I was helping someone, Beatrice said, trying to stay calm. A man was being dragged. He could have died. And that is the business of the men to handle, not yours. You are a young lady, not a ranch hand. Her mother pressed her handkerchief to her eyes. I have tried so hard to raise you properly. I have given you every advantage, and you throw it all away, again and again. You bring nothing but shame upon this family. The words hit like stones. Beatrice stood there, feeling each one land, feeling the weight of her mother's disappointment crush down on her shoulders. I have dinner plans tomorrow, she heard herself say, with Miles Murphy, the man I helped today. Her mother went pale. You will not. I forbid it. I'm 22 years old, Mother. I do not need your permission. You live in my house. You live on your father's money. You absolutely need my permission. Eleanor stood, drawing herself up. If you go to dinner with that man, if you continue to defy me this way, I will have no choice. I will send you to your aunt in Boston. I will separate you from this town and these people who encourage your shameful behavior, and I will tell everyone that you have gone for your health, and perhaps I can salvage Catherine's prospects from the wreckage you have made. It was not an idle threat. Beatrice could see that in her mother's face, in the desperate set of her jaw. Eleanor would do it. She would send Beatrice away, would cut her off from everything she had built here, all in the name of respectability. I will think on it, Beatrice said again. And this time when she went to her room, she locked the door and let herself cry. She should have sent a message to Miles canceling dinner. She should have been the dutiful daughter, the proper lady. But when tomorrow evening came, Beatrice found herself putting on her best dress anyway, a deep blue silk that had been her father's favorite. She arranged her dark hair carefully, pinched her cheeks for color, and walked out of the house with her head high while her mother watched in stricken silence from the parlor. The hotel restaurant was indeed public and proper, with white tablecloths and good china. Miles was waiting for her outside, and he had cleaned up just as he promised. He wore clean denim trousers and a pressed white shirt, and his dark hair was still damp from washing. The cut on his forehead was healing, a thin red line that would probably scar. "You look beautiful," he said simply, and offered his arm. Inside, the maitre d' gave them a table by the window. Miles held her chair, then sat across from her, and for a moment they just looked at each other, both seeming to realize the enormity of what they were doing. "I was not sure you would come," Miles said finally. "Figured maybe your family would object." "They did," Beatrice said, "but I came anyway." "I am glad." He smiled at her, that sunrise smile. "Though I am sorry if I am causing you trouble." "You are not causing anything. I am choosing this." The waiter came, and they ordered. Beef and potatoes for Miles, chicken and vegetables for Beatrice. When they were alone again, Miles leaned forward, his green eyes serious. "Tell me about your family," he said. "If you want to, I mean. You do not have to." So Beatrice told him about her mother's dreams of society and respectability, about her sister Catherine, who was sweet and gentle and everything a proper young lady should be, about the pressure to conform, to be less, to fit into a shape that felt all wrong. "I love them," she said. "I do, but I do not know how to be what they want me to be, and I am tired of trying." Miles listened without interrupting, his attention complete and unwavering. When she finished, he reached across the table and after a moment's hesitation took her hand. The touch sent a shock through her, warm and electric. "You should not have to be anything but yourself," he said. "You are smart and brave and skilled. Any family should be proud of you." "My mother says I bring shame upon them." Miles's jaw tightened. "Then your mother is wrong." The certainty in his voice made Beatrice want to cry. She blinked hard, squeezing his hand. "Tell me about the ranch," she said, needing to change the subject. "What is it like?" So Miles told her. About the Dancing M, which was owned by a man named Marcus Moreland, who treated his workers fairly and paid on time. About the work of ranching, which was hard and sometimes dangerous, but also satisfying in a way that was hard to explain. About sleeping under the stars and waking to watch the sun rise over the mountains and the feeling of a good horse under you and open country all around. "It is freedom," he said, "out there. Nobody cares who your family is or what you are supposed to be. They just care if you can do the work and if you are honest. That is all that matters." "It sounds wonderful," Beatrice said wistfully. "You should come see it sometime. The ranch, I mean. We have a cook, Mrs. Patterson, who would love you. She's always complaining that she is the only woman in a sea of men, and the boss's wife visits sometimes. You would have proper chaperones." "You want me to come to your ranch?" "I want to see you again," Miles said simply. "And again after that. I know it is fast. I know we just met. But Beatrice, I feel like I have been looking for you my whole life." It was too much, too fast, too soon. But Beatrice felt it too, that sense of recognition, of rightness, like something had clicked into place that she had not even known was missing. "I would like that," she said softly, "to see you again, and to visit the ranch." Miles's smile could have lit the whole room. They finished dinner talking about everything and nothing, and when he walked her home, she let him hold her hand the whole way. At her door, he tipped his hat to her, his eyes warm. "Thank you for taking a chance on me," he said. "Thank you for seeing me," Beatrice replied. "The real me." She went inside feeling like she was floating, like the world had shifted and everything was suddenly possible. That feeling lasted until she saw her mother and sister waiting in the parlor, both of their faces pale and set. "Sit down, Beatrice," her mother said. "We need to talk." The next 30 minutes were some of the worst of Beatrice's life. Her mother had been to see the lawyer, had been to see their priest, had been making arrangements. Beatrice would go to Boston within the month. She would stay with her aunt, attend proper social functions, and learn to be the lady she should have been all along. "You have given me no choice," Eleanor said, and she was crying now, tears streaming down her face. "I cannot control you here. You will not listen. You will not obey. You will ruin us all with your wildness. Please, Catherine said, speaking up for the first time. She was 18, blonde and blue-eyed and lovely. Please, Bea, do not fight this. Maybe Boston will be good for you. Maybe you will be happier there. I will not be happier away from everything I care about, Beatrice said, but she could hear the defeat in her own voice. Away from the work I do. The work you do is not appropriate, her mother said firmly. It is not safe, and it is not respectable. In Boston, you can start fresh. You can be someone new. But Beatrice did not want to be someone new. She wanted to be herself. She left them there and went to her room, her mind racing. She had 4 weeks. 4 weeks before they would put her on a train and send her away from everything she had built, everyone she cared about, everyone including Miles Murphy, who she had known for all of 2 days but who made her feel more alive than she had felt in years. She could not let them send her away, but she also could not defy her mother completely, not without being cut off entirely. And what would she do then? She had no money of her own, no way to support herself except through her medical work, which barely paid at all. Beatrice sat by her window and watched the moon rise and tried to figure out a way through the trap that was closing around her. Miles came to call the next day, properly this time, with flowers and a formal request to take Beatrice for a ride. Eleanor received him coldly, but she could not refuse without causing a scene, not when he was being so correct about it all. She agreed to let Beatrice go, but only with Catherine along as a chaperone. So the 3 of them rode out in Miles's borrowed wagon, with Catherine sitting between them and trying very hard to fade into the background. Miles drove them to a pretty spot by the river, where cottonwood trees gave shade, and the water ran clear over smooth stones. Your sister is a lot quieter than you, Miles said to Beatrice when Catherine had wandered off to pick wildflowers, staying within sight but giving them the illusion of privacy. She is everything I am not, Beatrice said, sweet and biddable and proper. She seems nice, Miles allowed, but I like you better. Despite everything, Beatrice smiled. You barely know me. I know enough, Miles said. He looked at her seriously. Beatrice, I heard in town this morning that your mother is planning to send you away, to Boston. Is it true? Beatrice's throat tightened. Yes, in 4 weeks. Because of me? Because of me, she corrected. Because I will not be what she wants me to be. Miles was quiet for a long moment, staring out at the river. Then he turned to her, and there was something fierce and determined in his face. Come to the ranch, he said. Come work for us. Mrs. Patterson needs help in the kitchen, and we could use someone with medical training. God knows the men hurt themselves often enough. Marcus would hire you. I know he would. You would have your own room, your own wages. You would be independent. My mother would never allow it. You are 22 years old, Miles said, echoing her own words back to her. You do not need her permission. I have no money, Beatrice said quietly. Everything I have comes from my father's estate, which my mother controls. If I defy her completely, I will have nothing. You will have a job. You will have a place to live. You will have your freedom. Miles reached out and took her hand. And you will have me if you want me. I know it is fast. I know I should court you properly for months before I say anything like this, but Beatrice, life is short. I nearly died 2 days ago, and I do not want to waste time pretending I do not feel what I feel. What do you feel? Beatrice asked, her heart hammering. Like you are the answer to a question I have been asking my whole life, Miles said simply. Like you are home, and I think maybe you feel it too. She did. God help her, she did. Beatrice looked at this cowboy who barely knew her and who still saw her more clearly than her own family did, and she felt something in her chest crack wide open. I cannot just leave, she said. My sister, my mother, they need me. Do they? Or do they need you to be someone you are not? Miles's voice was gentle but firm. Beatrice, you cannot live your life for other people. You will wake up one day and realize you never lived at all. Catherine was walking back toward them, her arms full of purple wildflowers. Miles squeezed Beatrice's hand once and then let go, giving her space to think. But Beatrice could not think. Her mind was spinning, caught between duty and desire, between the life she was supposed to want and the life she actually wanted. She looked at Miles and saw possibility. She looked at her sister and saw obligation. And she did not know how to choose. That night, Beatrice could not sleep. She lay in bed and stared at the ceiling and tried to imagine getting on a train to Boston, tried to imagine living in her aunt's house, attending teas and music halls, making polite conversation with eligible men who would want her to be quiet and decorative and small. Then she tried to imagine going to the Dancing M Ranch, working in the kitchen, tending to injured cowboys, sleeping under the wide New Mexico sky, living on her own terms, building a life with Miles Murphy, who looked at her like she hung the moon. By dawn, she had made her decision. It terrified her, but it also felt right in a way nothing else had in a very long time. She waited until after breakfast, when her mother was in the parlor reading correspondence and Catherine was practicing piano. Then she went in and closed the door behind her. "I'm not going to Boston," she said. Her mother looked up, her face going tight. "Beatrice, we have discussed this." "You have discussed it. I have made my choice. I am going to work at the Dancing M Ranch. They have offered me a position, and I'm going to take it." Eleanor stood slowly, her hands trembling. "You will do no such thing. You will not throw away your entire future to live in squalor with rough men and no prospects." "I will have prospects," Beatrice said. "I will have work that matters, and I will have my freedom." "You will have shame," her mother spat. "You will be ruined. No decent man will ever marry you." "Maybe I do not want a decent man. Maybe I want a good man. There is a difference." "This is about that cowboy, is it not? That Miles Murphy?" Eleanor's voice rose. "You have known him for 3 days, Beatrice, 3 days, and you are willing to destroy everything for him?" "I am willing to save myself for him," Beatrice said quietly, "and maybe that is the same thing to you. But Mother, I cannot keep living this way. I cannot keep trying to be someone I am not. I am sorry I am not the daughter you wanted, but I am the daughter you have, and I am leaving." Catherine had stopped playing piano. She appeared in the doorway, her face white. "Bea, please, think about this. Think about what you are throwing away." "I am thinking about what I am gaining," Beatrice said. She looked at her sister, this girl she loved so much, and felt her heart break. "Kate, I love you, but I cannot stay here and slowly disappear. I will not." "Then go," her mother said, her voice like ice. "Go to your ranch and your cowboy and your shameful life, but do not come back. Do not write. Do not expect anything from this family ever again. You have made your choice, and you will live with the consequences." The words should have hurt more than they did. Maybe Beatrice had been preparing for them somewhere deep inside. She nodded once, then went upstairs to pack her things. She did not have much that was truly hers. Some clothes, some books, her medical supplies. She packed it all into 2 bags, moving quickly before she could lose her nerve. Catherine came in as she was finishing, her eyes red from crying. "I do not understand," Catherine said. "How can you just leave? How can you choose a stranger over your own family?" "I am not choosing him over you," Beatrice said. "I am choosing myself. And Miles is not a stranger. He is someone who sees me, really sees me. Can you understand that?" "No," Catherine whispered, "but I love you anyway, and I will miss you." They held each other for a long moment, and then Beatrice picked up her bags and walked out of the house. Her mother did not come to say goodbye. Beatrice had not expected her to. The walk to the livery stable where Miles was loading supplies felt like the longest of her life. People stared as she passed, whispered behind their hands. By tomorrow, all of Santa Fe would know that Beatrice Donovan had run off to live on a ranch with a cowboy. The scandal would be enormous, but she kept walking. Miles saw her coming and went very still. Then he seemed to understand, and his whole face lit up. He jumped down from the wagon and came to meet her, taking her bags. "You are sure?" he asked. "I am terrified," Beatrice admitted. "But yes, I am sure." "You bring me nothing but joy," Miles said softly and kissed her forehead. "Come on, let us go home." The Dancing M Ranch was everything Miles had promised and more. It sat in a valley between red rock hills, with good water and better grazing. The main house was built of adobe, low and solid, with a wide porch and windows that let in the light. There were bunk houses for the hands, a barn, corrals, and a separate building that served as kitchen and dining hall. Mrs. Patterson was indeed thrilled to have another woman around. She was 60 years old, round and energetic, with gray hair and a forthright manner that Beatrice immediately liked. "About time," she said when Miles introduced them. "I have been cooking for 15 men on my own for 2 years. You know your way around a kitchen?" "I can learn," Beatrice said. "Good enough. I can work with willing." "Marcus," she called, and a man emerged from the main house. Marcus Moreland was in his 40s, weathered and lean, with shrewd blue eyes and a calm manner. He looked Beatrice over carefully, then nodded. "Miles says you have medical training," he said. "Isn't that true?" "Yes, sir. I have been trained by a Navajo healer, and I have experience with childbirth, injuries, and illness." "We could use that," Marcus said. "Lost a good man last year to a fever we could not break. Another to a broken leg that went bad. You think you could have saved them?" "I cannot promise anything," Beatrice said honestly, "but I would have tried." Marcus smiled slightly. "I appreciate honesty." "All right. You've got a job. $40 a month, room and board included. You will help Mrs. Patterson in the kitchen and tend to anyone who needs medical care. We will fix up the small room off the kitchen for you. It is not much, but it is private and clean." "Thank you," Beatrice said, relief flooding through her. "I will work hard, I promise." "See that you do." But his eyes were kind. "Welcome to the Dancing M, Miss Donovan." The work was hard, harder than anything Beatrice had done before. She woke before dawn to help Mrs. Patterson prepare breakfast for the hands, spent the day cooking and cleaning and learning, and fell into bed exhausted every night. But it was good work, honest work, and no one looked at her like she was shameful or wrong. The Cowboys were rough men, but they were respectful. They called her Miss Donovan and tipped their hats and seemed genuinely grateful when she treated their various injuries. Within a week, she had set a dislocated shoulder, treated a rope burn, and diagnosed a potential case of appendicitis early enough to send the man to a real doctor in Santa Fe. And there was Miles. He was everywhere, it seemed, always finding reasons to be near her. He carried water for the kitchen, chopped wood, fixed a wobbly table leg. He made her laugh with stories of ranch mishaps and listened with genuine interest when she told him about her medical work. They took walks in the evening properly chaperoned by Mrs. Patterson or one of the other hands, and talked until the stars came out. "You are happy here," Miles said one evening, about 2 weeks after she had arrived. It was not a question. "I am," Beatrice said, surprised to realize it was true. "I did not think I would be, not this quickly, but I am." "Good." Miles took her hand, his thumbs stroking over her knuckles. "Because I want to talk to you about something, about us." Beatrice's heart started to race. "All right?" "I know it has only been a few weeks. I know people will say it is too fast. But Beatrice, I am sure about you, about what I feel. And I do not want to waste time courting you for months when I already know what I want." "What do you want?" Beatrice asked softly. "To marry you," Miles said simply. "To build a life with you. To wake up next to you every morning and fall asleep with you every night. To have a family with you if you want that. To grow old watching you save lives and be brilliant and brave." Tears sprang to Beatrice's eyes. "I want that too," she whispered. "But Miles, I have nothing. No dowry, no family support. My mother meant what she said. She will never forgive me for this." "I do not need a dowry," Miles said. "I need you. Just you. Will you marry me, Beatrice Donovan? Will you be my wife?" She should have been cautious. She should have waited, thought it through, made sure she was not just running from her old life into something equally wrong. But when she looked at Miles, she saw her future. She saw partnership and respect and love, real love, the kind that saw you clearly and chose you anyway. "Yes," she said. "Yes, I will marry you." Miles kissed her then, right there under the stars, and it felt like coming home. They were married 3 weeks later, in a simple ceremony at the ranch. Marcus stood up for Miles, and Mrs. Patterson stood up for Beatrice. There were no white roses or elaborate gowns, no society guests or champagne toasts, just a traveling preacher and the ranch hands and two people who loved each other making promises they intended to keep. Beatrice wrote to her mother and sister telling them about the wedding. She did not expect a response, and she did not get one. It hurt, more than she wanted to admit, but Miles held her while she cried and reminded her that family was not always blood. Sometimes it was the people who chose you, who saw you, who loved you as you were. The small room off the kitchen became their home. It was tiny, barely big enough for a bed and a dresser and a small trunk, but it was theirs. Beatrice woke in Miles's arms every morning and fell asleep there every night, and she had never been happier. The work continued. Beatrice helped in the kitchen and tended to the sick and injured. She learned to ride properly, learned to rope a calf, learned 100 skills she had never needed in Santa Fe. Miles worked the ranch during the day and came home to her at night, and their love grew deeper with every passing week. Summer turned to fall, and fall to winter. On a cold December evening, Beatrice realized her courses were late. She waited another week, watching her body for other signs, and when she was sure, she told Miles, his joy was incandescent. He picked her up and spun her around their tiny room, kissing her face, her hands, her still flat belly. "A baby," he kept saying. "We are going to have a baby." "Are you happy?" Beatrice asked, even though she could see that he was. "Happy does not begin to cover it," Miles said. "You have given me everything, Beatrice. A home, a purpose, a future, and now a child. How did I get so lucky?" "I am the lucky one," Beatrice said softly. The pregnancy was not easy. Beatrice was sick for the first 3 months, unable to keep down much food. But Mrs. Patterson took care of her, and Miles was endlessly patient, holding her hair when she was sick and bringing her dry crackers and weak tea. As winter gave way to spring, Beatrice's belly grew round and her energy returned. She continued working as long as she could, helping in the kitchen and tending to minor injuries. The Cowboys treated her like precious cargo, refusing to let her lift anything heavy and leaping to help her whenever she needed it. Miles was beside himself with worry and excitement. He built a cradle from scratch, smooth wood sanded and polished until it gleamed. He drove into Santa Fe for supplies, coming back with tiny clothes and soft blankets. And every night he lay with his hand on Beatrice's belly, feeling their child move, his face full of wonder. "Boy or girl?" he would ask. "Healthy," Beatrice would reply. "That is all I care about." In truth, she was nervous. She knew all the things that could go wrong in childbirth, had seen women and babies die despite her best efforts. But she also knew Maria's teachings, knew what to watch for, knew how to be patient and when to intervene. When her time came in late May of 1879, Beatrice labored for 16 hours. Mrs. Patterson stayed with her the whole time, and Miles paced outside like a caged animal, driving the other hands to distraction with his worry. Finally, as the sun was setting, Beatrice felt the overwhelming urge to push. She bore down, gripping Mrs. Patterson's hands, and felt her body do what it was meant to do. One more push, then another, and then a cry split the air. "It is a boy," Mrs. Patterson said, tears in her eyes. "A healthy boy." Beatrice laughed and cried at the same time as they placed her son on her chest. He was perfect, red and squalling and absolutely perfect. Mrs. Patterson called for Miles, and he came in like a whirlwind, his face white, his eyes huge. "Is she all right?" he asked. "Is the baby all right?" "We are both fine," Beatrice said. "Come meet your son." Miles approached slowly, like he was afraid the moment might shatter. Then he saw the baby, and his whole face crumpled. He sank down beside the bed, touching the tiny hand with one finger, and started to cry. "He is perfect," he whispered. "You are perfect. God, Beatrice, you are so strong." They named him Matthew after Miles's father, Matthew Murphy, with his mother's dark hair and his father's green eyes. He was a good baby, healthy and alert, and Miles doted on him shamelessly. Beatrice would wake in the night to feed the baby and find Miles already awake, just watching them both with a look of absolute contentment on his face. "I never knew I could be this happy," he told her one night. "I never even knew this kind of happy existed." "Me either," Beatrice said softly. When Matthew was 2 months old, Beatrice received a letter. It was from Catherine, and her hands shook as she opened it. The letter was short. Catherine was engaged to a young man from Boston who had come west on business and fallen in love with her. The wedding would be in September, and Catherine wanted Beatrice there. "Mother will not like it," Catherine wrote. "But this is my wedding, and I want my sister there. Please come, Bea. I miss you so much. I want to meet your husband and your baby. I want us to be a family again, even if it is not the way Mother planned." Beatrice showed the letter to Miles, her heart in her throat. "What do you think?" she asked. "I think you should go," Miles said. "She is your sister, you love her, and maybe it is time to try to mend those bridges. My mother will be furious. Let her be furious. You have nothing to be ashamed of, Beatrice. You built a good life here. You are a good wife, a good mother, a skilled healer. If your mother cannot see that, it is her loss, not yours." So in September, they made the trip to Santa Fe. Beatrice was nervous as they drove into town, Matthew in her arms and Miles beside her. She had not been back since she left, had not seen her mother or sister in over a year. Catherine was waiting for them at the house. She ran out when she saw them, throwing her arms around Beatrice and crying. "You came," she kept saying. "You actually came?" "Of course I came," Beatrice said. "You are my sister." Catherine pulled back and looked at Miles, then at the baby, and her face lit up. "Can I hold him?" "Of course." Beatrice transferred Matthew into her sister's arms, and Catherine cooed over him, utterly charmed. "He is beautiful," she said. "He has your eyes, Miles." "And his mother's stubbornness," Miles said with a grin. Their mother appeared on the porch. She looked older, Beatrice thought, thinner and more worn. She stared at them for a long moment, her face unreadable. "Catherine invited us," Beatrice said quietly. "If we are not welcome, we will leave." Eleanor said nothing for a long moment. Then she looked at the baby in Catherine's arms, and something in her face shifted. "You had a child," she said. "Yes. His name is Matthew." "May I?" Eleanor asked, and Catherine carefully transferred the baby into her grandmother's arms. Eleanor looked down at Matthew, and her eyes filled with tears. "He is beautiful," she whispered. "He looks like your father did when you were born." "Mother," Beatrice said carefully, "I know you are angry with me. I know you think I shamed you, but I am happy. I have a good life and a good husband, and I'm doing work that matters." "I know," Eleanor said, and Beatrice nearly fell over in shock. "I know. I have heard things in town about how you are working at the ranch, how you have saved several men from serious injury, how you delivered the foreman's wife's baby last month when there were complications. People speak well of you, Beatrice." "They do?" "Yes." Eleanor looked up from the baby, and there were tears on her face. "And I have been a fool. I was so worried about what people would think, about maintaining our position, that I could not see what was right in front of me. You were never meant to fit into society's mold. Beatrice, you were meant to break it." Beatrice felt her own eyes fill. "I am sorry I disappointed you." "You did not disappoint me," Eleanor said. "You terrified me, because you were always so brave, so fearless, and I was afraid the world would hurt you for it. I wanted to keep you safe, even if it meant making you small. But I see now that I was wrong. You were never meant to be small. Mother, Beatrice whispered. And then she was in her mother's arms, both of them crying, while Catherine cried too, and Miles stood back and watched with shining eyes. They stayed in Santa Fe for 2 weeks. Beatrice helped with the wedding preparations, and Miles charmed everyone he met with his easy manner and obvious devotion to his wife. Eleanor got to know her son-in-law and her grandson, and slowly, carefully, she and Beatrice rebuilt their relationship. It was not perfect. There were still moments of tension, still things they disagreed on. But there was also love and respect and a growing understanding that family did not have to mean sameness. Catherine's wedding was beautiful. She married a kind young man named Robert, who looked at her the way Miles looked at Beatrice, and Beatrice felt nothing but happiness for her sister. At the reception, Eleanor stood and made a toast. "To my daughters," she said, her voice strong, "both of whom have taught me that there is more than one way to be a good woman. Catherine, who brings grace and gentleness to everything she does, and Beatrice, who brings courage and strength. I am proud of you both." Beatrice met her mother's eyes across the room and saw acceptance there, finally. She raised her glass in return, her heart full. When they returned to the ranch, it felt like coming home. Miles carried Matthew inside while Beatrice looked around at the place they had built together, at the life they had made. It was not the life she had been raised to want, but it was the life she was meant to have. The years passed in a blur of work and love and growing. Matthew grew into a sturdy toddler with his father's adventurous spirit and his mother's determination. When he was 3, Beatrice realized she was pregnant again, and this time Miles was even more insufferably excited than before. Their second child was a girl, born in the spring of 1882. They named her Maria, after the healer who had taught Beatrice so much. She had Miles's green eyes and a temperament that was already clearly willful and independent. "She is going to be just like you," Miles said, rocking his daughter while Matthew climbed all over him, demanding attention. "Heaven help us all," Beatrice said, but she was smiling. The ranch prospered. Marcus eventually made Miles a partner, recognizing his hard work and dedication. They built a larger house for the Murphy family with a room for the children to grow and space for Beatrice to work on her medical supplies. She became known throughout the territory as someone who could be counted on in an emergency, and people came from miles around when they needed help. Eleanor visited every year, and the relationship between mother and daughter continued to heal. Catherine and Robert eventually moved back to Santa Fe, and the sisters grew close again, their children growing up as cousins and friends. On Beatrice's 30th birthday in 1886, Miles took her up into the hills behind the ranch. They rode together, her in front of him on his horse, just like they had done when they were courting. He stopped at a high point where they could see the whole valley spread out below them, the ranch buildings tiny in the distance. 8 years, he said, his arms around her waist. "Can you believe it has been 8 years?" "Sometimes it feels like yesterday," Beatrice said. "Sometimes it feels like forever." "Do you have any regrets?" Miles asked. "About leaving Santa Fe, about your mother, about any of it?" Beatrice thought about it carefully. She thought about the life she might have had, the society parties and the proper marriage and the quiet, small existence. "No," she said finally, "no regrets at all. You gave me everything I did not know I needed." "You saved me," Miles said softly. "That day when my horse bolted, you literally saved my life. But you also saved me in every way that matters. You made me believe in possibility, in building something real and lasting. You brought me joy, Beatrice. Every single day you bring me nothing but joy." She turned in his arms and kissed him, tasting salt and sun and home. "You brought me freedom," she said against his lips. "You brought me myself." They stayed up on that hill until the sun started to set, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink and purple. Then they rode home together, down to the ranch and their children and their life. Matthew grew up to be a veterinarian, traveling throughout the territory, tending to animals and learning from his mother's medical knowledge applied to a different kind of patient. Maria became a doctor, the first woman doctor in New Mexico Territory, carrying on her mother's legacy of healing in an even bigger way. Eleanor lived to be 80, long enough to see both of her granddaughters marry and have children of their own. On her deathbed, she called Beatrice to her side. "I was wrong about so many things," she said, her voice weak but clear, "but I was most wrong about you. You never brought shame on our family. You brought honor. You showed people that a woman could be more than ornamental. And I am so, so proud of you." "I love you, Mother," Beatrice said, tears streaming down her face. "I love you too," Eleanor said, "and I'm sorry it took me so long to see what was right in front of me. You were always extraordinary, my darling girl. I just had to learn how to see it." Catherine inherited the house in Santa Fe, but she spent more time at the ranch than anywhere else, saying it felt more like home. Her children and Beatrice's children ran wild together across the New Mexico hills, and the Murphy name became synonymous with hard work, healing, and integrity. Miles and Beatrice grew old together. His hair went silver, and her dark hair streaked with white. They moved a little slower, sat a little longer on the porch in the evenings. But the love between them never dimmed. If anything, it grew stronger, deeper, more essential. On their 40th wedding anniversary in 1919, their children threw them a party at the ranch. The place was crowded with people whose lives they had touched, patients Beatrice had healed, men Miles had worked with, families they had helped. There were speeches and toasts and tears of joy. Miles stood up, leaning on his cane, and raised his glass. 40 years ago, he said, his voice still strong despite his age. "I met a woman who stopped my runaway horse and saved my life. I did not know it then, but she also saved my soul. Beatrice Murphy, you have brought me nothing but joy every day since. Here is to 40 more years." "I will be over 100, Beatrice pointed out, laughing. "Then I will love you until you are over 100, Miles said, and kissed her while their children and grandchildren and friends cheered. They did not get 40 more years, but they got 10, which was more than many people received. Miles passed peacefully in his sleep in 1929, at the age of 77. He went to bed holding Beatrice's hand and simply did not wake up. She held him for a long time, crying, grateful that he had not suffered, devastated that he was gone. At his funeral, the church was packed. People came from all over the state to pay their respects to the man who had lived his life with integrity and kindness. Beatrice stood at the front, flanked by her children and grandchildren, and listened to person after person talk about how Miles had helped them, taught them, been there for them. But it was Beatrice who gave the final eulogy. She stood at the pulpit, old and tired but still fierce, and looked out at the sea of faces. "Miles Murphy was the best man I ever knew," she said simply. "He was not perfect. He was stubborn. And sometimes he snored, and he had a terrible habit of leaving his boots exactly where I would trip over them. But he was kind. He was honest. He saw people not as they were supposed to be, but as they actually were. And he loved with his whole heart, without reservation, without condition." She paused, gathering herself. "My mother once told me that I brought shame upon my family. She was wrong, and she knew it eventually. But Miles knew it from the start. From the very first day he looked at me and saw not shame but possibility. He told me I brought him nothing but joy, and he spent 51 years proving that he meant it. I was his joy, and he was mine. And I will carry that with me until we meet again." Beatrice lived another 5 years, continuing to work as long as her hands were steady enough to tend patients. She passed in 1934 at the age of 78, surrounded by her children and grandchildren. Her last words were, "Tell Miles I am coming home." They buried her next to him, on a hill overlooking the ranch they had built together. The headstone read, "Beatrice Donovan Murphy, 1856-1934, healer, mother, beloved wife. She brought nothing but joy." Years later, their great-granddaughter, doing research for a family history project, found a letter tucked into an old Bible that had belonged to Beatrice. It was dated 1878, and it was in Miles's handwriting. "My dearest Beatrice," it read, "you told me today that your mother said you brought shame upon your family. I want you to know something, and I want you to never forget it. You bring me nothing but joy. Your strength brings me joy. Your intelligence brings me joy. Your courage brings me joy. Everything you are, everything you do, everything you will become brings me joy. I do not care what anyone else thinks. I see you, really see you, and what I see is magnificent. You are the answer to every prayer I did not know I was saying. You are home. I love you with everything I am, and I will love you with everything I am until the day I die, and probably after that too. Yours forever, Miles." The great-granddaughter carefully preserved the letter, making copies for everyone in the family. It became a treasured heirloom, passed down through the generations, a testament to a love that had started with a runaway horse and grown into something that outlasted even death. The Dancing M Ranch still exists, run now by Matthew's great-grandchildren. On the porch of the main house there is a plaque that reads, "Founded by Miles and Beatrice Murphy, who proved that love built on mutual respect and genuine partnership can withstand anything." May we all be so lucky. And in Santa Fe, in the Historical Society's collection, there is a small exhibit about Beatrice Murphy, pioneering healer and medical practitioner. The centerpiece is a photograph from 1918, showing an older woman with silver-streaked hair and a warm smile, standing next to a tall man with laugh lines around his green eyes. They are holding hands, and the joy on their faces is unmistakable. The caption reads, "Beatrice and Miles Murphy, married 40 years. She saved his life when his horse bolted in 1878. He said she brought him nothing but joy. They proved that true love is built not on propriety or expectation, but on genuine seeing and acceptance. Their legacy of healing and partnership continues to inspire." And somewhere in whatever comes after this life, Miles and Beatrice are together still, holding hands, their love undiminished by time or death or distance. He still tells her she brings him joy. She still marvels that he sees her so clearly, and they both know with absolute certainty that they made exactly the right choice that day in 1878 when a runaway horse and a brave woman collided and changed two lives forever. Their story became legend in New Mexico, told and retold around fires and dinner tables. The girl who chose healing over respectability. The cowboy who saw her worth when no one else would. The love that defied convention and built something lasting and true. And every time the story is told, it ends the same way. Her mother said she brought shame upon the family. The cowboy said she brought him nothing but joy. And in the end, joy won.